The papers were spread across the walnut table when Hannah lowered the pen. Rain pressed against the office windows. A clock ticked above a shelf of family photographs. Across from her sat a counselor, and the married couple who had promised to give her baby everything she believed she could not. A yellow house. A safe neighborhood, two parents who had waited 7 years for a child. Hannah had already signed her name twice. One empty line remained. I was standing outside the room with a wooden cradle in my hands, hearing enough through the half-closed door to know I had arrived at the worst possible moment. Or maybe the last possible moment. I had spent weeks respecting her decision. I had told myself it belonged to her. I had kept every promise except the one I had never said aloud. Then I heard Hannah whisper, "He deserves a real home." That sentence broke something open inside me. But to explain why I stepped through that door, I have to go back to the afternoon I met her beside a broken rocking chair. My name is Micah Reed. I was 33 then, and I repaired old furniture in a small Indiana town called Bellwether. My workshop stood behind a hardware store on Willow Street. It had wide front windows, a crooked green sign, and a second-floor apartment that had been empty almost as long as I had owned the building. Most mornings began with the smell of sawdust and coffee. Most evenings ended with me sweeping the same floor alone. I liked furniture because broken wood was honest. A loose joint did not pretend to be strong. A cracked board did not smile and tell you everything was fine. It showed you exactly where it hurt. People were harder. I learned that early. When I was 10, my mother lost her job and then our apartment. My little sister Emily was only 11 months old. We spent several weeks sleeping in a church basement before a social worker separated us. Emily went to a family 2 counties away. I went to a foster home. My mother kept telling me the separation would last a few days. Then she said a few weeks. Then she stopped answering the telephone. I never saw Emily again. The last thing I remembered from that apartment was the mobile above her crib. It had 4 blue wooden stars hanging from thin white strings. One star had fallen off, and I carried it in my pocket when the social worker took me away. I still had it. It stayed in the top drawer of my workbench, beneath a bundle of old receipts and a photograph I rarely touched. A kind foster couple eventually took me in. They taught me how to use tools, finish school, and pay bills on time. They did everything decent people could do. But part of me remained that 10-year-old boy standing beside an empty crib. Because of that, I had strong opinions about promises. I did not make them easily. I met Hannah at Maple House, a community residence for expectant mothers who needed temporary support. Mrs. Rosa Alvarez ran the place. She was 62, 5 feet tall, and capable of making grown men feel irresponsible with one raised eyebrow. She called my workshop on a cold Tuesday morning. "Micah, the rocking chair is making that noise again." "What noise?" "The sound of a lawsuit." "That is a serious noise." "One of the arms came loose." "Has anyone been hurt?" "Only my patients." I loaded my tools into the truck. Maple House occupied an old brick home near the edge of town. The place had 6 bedrooms, a wide kitchen, and a porch that wrapped around 2 sides. Volunteers had painted the front door blue, but the winter wind had already started peeling the bottom edge. When I arrived, Mrs. Alvarez met me with a ring of keys in one hand and a dish towel over her shoulder. "The chair is upstairs," she said, "and do not tell me it cannot be repaired." "I haven't seen it yet. You repair things. That is your entire personality." I thought I had hidden that better. She pointed toward the staircase. I found the chair in a small sitting room beside a window. It was oak, nearly 80 years old, with wide arms and a curved back. Someone had placed a folded blanket over the seat. A woman stood beside it. She wore a gray sweater that was too large for her and dark jeans tucked into worn boots. Her brown hair rested against one shoulder in a loose braid. She was perhaps 8 months pregnant, though I tried not to stare long enough to calculate. She had one hand beneath her stomach and the other wrapped around a mug. "This is Hannah Bell," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Hannah." This is Micah, he complains, but he usually fixes things. I complain because it improves the craftsmanship. Hannah's mouth curved slightly. Mrs. Alvarez left us with the chair. I knelt and tested the loose arm. The rear joint had split where an old wooden pin had weakened. This chair belonged to my grandmother, Hannah said. Her voice was soft but clear. She used to rock me in it. That explains the age. The chair's age or mine? I glanced up. The chair. I have a strict policy against guessing a woman's age while she is holding a hot drink. The small smile returned. I removed the damaged pin and examined the opening. Someone had tried to repair it with a nail, then hidden the mistake beneath dark varnish. Can you save it? She asked. Yes, you sound certain. Wood usually tells you what it needs. She moved closer, watching my hands. What does this need? A new pin. Fresh glue. A clamp. Patience. That last one sounds expensive. It is. Most people refuse to pay for it. She gave a quiet laugh. I worked while she stood by the window. On the table beside her was a stack of envelopes tied with blue ribbon. Every envelope had a date written on the front. I did not mean to read them, but the top one was turned toward me. To my son, on the day you are born. I lowered my attention to the chair. Hannah noticed. I'm writing letters, she said. I nodded once. For later, she added. I could have asked what she meant. I did not. Mrs. Alvarez had told me enough about Maple House to understand that every woman there had a situation she might not want to explain to a stranger with sawdust on his coat. I removed the old nail. As it came free, Hannah leaned down. There's something underneath. A tiny star had been carved into the wood near the joint. The mark was no bigger than my thumbnail. Hannah touched it carefully. My grandfather carved those, she said. He put one somewhere on everything he built. Why? He said a star meant the piece had a place to belong. Her fingers stayed on the mark. My grandmother used to make me find them. I thought about the blue star hidden in my workbench. Your grandfather built this chair? He built half the furniture in their house. I used to sit on his workbench and hand him the wrong tools. That is how most apprentices begin. You have apprentices? No, I don't trust anyone with my sandpaper. She smiled again, but it faded when she noticed the envelopes. I fitted a temporary clamp over the broken joint. I need to take the chair to my shop, I said. The repair will hold better if I clean out the old glue. How long? 2 or 3 days. I may not be here much longer. There was something in the way she said it. Not excitement. Not relief. Just a fact she had repeated until it stopped sounding painful. I'll finish it tomorrow, I said. You don't have to rush. I know. She watched me lift the chair. At the door, she spoke again. My baby is being adopted. I stopped. She kept her gaze on the envelopes. The couple lives near Indianapolis, she continued. They have a yellow house and a dog. They sent pictures. I set the chair down carefully. Are they good people? I think so. That matters. Her eyes lifted toward mine. Most people expected a different response. I could see it immediately. Maybe she had prepared herself for questions. Maybe she expected judgment. Instead, I asked, do they know about the letters? Yes, they promised to give him one every birthday. That sounds thoughtful. Hannah pressed her lips together. He'll have a room, she said. A yard. 2 parents. Everything a child is supposed to have. The sentence came out smoothly. Almost rehearsed. I recognized rehearsed words. I had used plenty of them myself. Then I should get this chair finished, I said. She nodded. I carried it downstairs. The next afternoon, Hannah appeared at my workshop. I was sanding the repaired joint when the front bell rattled. She stepped inside carrying a paper bag and wearing a rust-colored coat. You said tomorrow, she told me. I did. It is tomorrow. I admire your commitment to deadlines. She placed the bag on my bench. Mrs. Alvarez made cinnamon rolls. That woman has excellent collection methods. I told her you were probably working through lunch. I had coffee. That is not lunch. It had milk. She shook her head. The chair stood beside my workbench, stripped of its dark varnish around the damaged arm. I had replaced the old pin with a new oak dowel and matched the grain as closely as I could. Hannah ran her hand across the joint. I can barely see where it broke. That is the goal. My grandfather always left repairs visible. Why? He said hiding a break made people ashamed of surviving it. I studied the repair. That sounds wiser than matching grain. He was wiser than most people. She looked around the workshop. The room held half-finished tables, cabinet doors, stacked lumber, jars of screws, and 3 clocks that showed different times. Afternoon sunlight stretched across the floorboards. Hannah pointed toward a small writing desk near the window. What happened to that? Water damage. And the cabinet? Bad hinge. The little table? Angry dog. She turned toward me. You fix all of this alone? Usually, that seems lonely. The observation landed too close. I have the clocks. None of them agree. That keeps conversation interesting. She opened the paper bag and handed me a cinnamon roll. We ate beside the workbench. When I finished, I noticed her studying the chair again. Would you like to help with the finish? I asked. I'd ruin it. Probably. She frowned. Honesty is important in a workshop. I changed my mind. I hope your clock stops speaking to you. I handed her a piece of fine sandpaper. Follow the grain. Light pressure. She sat on a stool and began sanding the opposite arm. Her movements were cautious, then steadier. After a few minutes, she said, My grandfather taught me this. You remember? Enough to know you were waiting for me to do it wrong. I was prepared to make a speech. Was it a long speech? Very moving. I'm glad I denied you the opportunity. We worked until the winter light turned pale. The quiet between us did not feel uncomfortable. That surprised me. Most silence with another person made me search for a reason to leave. With Hannah, it felt useful. At one point, the baby moved. She stopped sanding and placed her hand against the side of her stomach. Everything all right? I asked. He kicks when I sit too still. Maybe he wants a job. He has no references. I run a forgiving establishment. She laughed, then her expression changed. Without thinking, she reached for my wrist. Here, she placed my palm against her sweater. A small, firm movement pushed beneath my hand. I forgot every sensible thing I could have said. Hannah watched my face. He does that after I eat something sweet. I felt another kick. Strong, I murmured. He'll need to be. Her fingers remained around my wrist. Then she released me and turned back to the chair. The room felt different after that. Warmer, more dangerous. Not because anything bad had happened. Because something good might. I returned the rocking chair to Maple House the following morning. Hannah placed it beside the window in her bedroom. The envelopes were now stacked inside a cedar box I had made from leftover boards. She touched the lid. You made this? You needed something better than ribbon. She lifted it and found the carved star beneath the handle. Her breath caught. You remembered. It seemed important. It was. I shifted my weight. I can remove it. No. She pressed a fingertip into the carved lines. Please leave it. That was how our friendship began. Not with a grand moment. With an old chair, a bag of cinnamon rolls, and a star carved into cedar. Hannah started visiting the workshop twice a week. At first, she claimed she came to check whether the chair repair was still holding. Then she began helping with small tasks. She organized screws into jars. She rewrote labels I had ignored for years. She found a box of unpaid invoices beneath a stack of catalogs and held them up with an expression of deep concern. Micah, how are you still in business? Skill, this invoice is 4 months old. Patience, this one is yours to send. I was building suspense. She sat at my desk and opened my account ledger. Before moving to Bellwether, Hannah had worked as an office assistant for a property company. She knew spreadsheets, invoices, payroll, and every other part of business I treated as a personal insult. Within 2 afternoons, she had organized my records. Within a week, 3 customers who had forgotten to pay suddenly remembered. I handed her an envelope with cash. She pushed it back. "No, you worked. I was bored. You were effective while bored. Keep it. I don't accept free labor." Her expression hardened. "I'm not asking for charity. Neither am I." I placed the envelope beside her hand. "You earned it." She stared at the money, then at me. "Mrs. Alvarez told you I'm broke." "Mrs. Alvarez tells me when the gutters need cleaning. She does not discuss the women who live in her house." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because you rescued my business from my filing system." She finally took the envelope. After that, she worked regular hours. I paid her properly. She kept records. Neither of us called it help. The arrangement gave her pride, and it gave me reasons to leave coffee on the desk beside the window before she arrived. She liked hers with cinnamon. I started keeping cinnamon in the shop. We fell into small routines. On Tuesdays, she worked on invoices. On Thursdays, we ate lunch at Nora's diner across the street. On Saturdays, I drove her to the grocery store because Maple House's van was unreliable, and Hannah hated asking Mrs. Alvarez for rides. She never bought much. Milk, apples, bread, tea. Once, she stood in the baby aisle holding a pair of blue socks. She rubbed the fabric between her fingers. Then she returned them to the shelf. I pretended to be reading the ingredients on a cereal box. At Nora's diner, she always ordered tomato soup and half a grilled cheese sandwich. The other half went into a napkin for later. One Thursday, Nora herself brought us 2 pieces of pecan pie. "We didn't order these," Hannah said. Nora placed them on the table. The gentleman by the window paid. We both turned. There was no gentleman by the window. Nora shrugged. "He must have left." Hannah waited until Nora walked away. "She thinks we're dating." Nora thinks everyone is dating. It improves tips. Does it? No, Hannah studied her pie. Would it bother you? What? If people thought that. I picked up my fork. No, she waited. Would it bother you? I asked. Her cheeks turned pink. I didn't say it would. You didn't say it wouldn't. You repair chairs for a living. Do not try to become clever now. I smiled down at the plate. She smiled too. Neither of us finished the conversation. One evening, a storm moved across Bellwether while Hannah was at the workshop. Rain struck the windows hard enough to blur the streetlights. Mrs. Alvarez called to say a tree branch had blocked the road near Maple House. You can wait upstairs, I told Hannah. The apartment has a sofa. I thought nobody lived up there. Nobody does. Then why is there a sofa? I bought the building with it. We climbed the narrow staircase behind the shop. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living room with tall windows. Dust covered the mantel. A round table stood beneath a hanging lamp. The refrigerator held a bottle of water, mustard, and nothing else. Hannah opened it. This is upsetting. I eat downstairs. Do you cook? I heat things. That is not cooking. It changes the temperature. That counts. She walked through the room slowly. The smaller bedroom faced the alley. Rain slid down the glass. Against one wall stood an unfinished crib I had been restoring for Maple House. Hannah stopped in the doorway. You never told me you were fixing this. It came from the church donation room. She ran her hand along the top rail. You could put it near the window. What? The crib. If someone lived here. I leaned against the doorframe. Someone would need to live here first. She glanced around the room. It could be a nice nursery. The words remained between us. Hannah lowered her eyes. I shouldn't have said that. Why? Because it isn't mine. No one lives here. That doesn't make it mine. Thunder rolled beyond the rooftops. She moved to the window. The adoptive parents sent another letter, she said. I stayed quiet. They want to name him Owen. Do you like that? It's a good name. That wasn't my question. Her shoulders tightened. They asked whether I had chosen a name during the pregnancy. Have you? She touched the glass. No. The answer came too quickly. I knew she was hiding something. I did not push. The storm passed after an hour. I drove her back to Maple House through streets covered in wet leaves. Before she left the truck, she said, I don't want you to think I'm ungrateful. I don't. They're kind people. I believe you. They can give him more. I gripped the steering wheel. More than what? More than I can. She opened the door before I could answer. For several days, the empty apartment above my shop bothered me. I noticed its windows whenever I parked outside. I noticed the second bedroom when I climbed the stairs to check the pipes. I noticed how easily Hannah had imagined a crib beside the window. The apartment was not luxurious. The kitchen cabinets needed paint. The bathroom floor had one cracked tile. The furnace complained whenever the temperature dropped. But it was warm. It was safe. And it was empty. I began repairing it without telling her. I replaced the bathroom tile. I painted the kitchen. I tightened the windows and installed a better lock. I told myself I was improving the value of the building. That lie lasted less than a week. Hannah found out when she came upstairs looking for a box of printer paper. She stood in the freshly painted kitchen while I was attaching a cabinet door. What are you doing? Fixing the hinge. You painted. The walls were terrible. You repaired the windows. They leaked. Her gaze moved toward the hall. Did you finish the crib? I set down the screwdriver. Yes, for Maple House? That was the original plan. What is the new plan? I could not answer without saying too much. She crossed her arms. Micah, I don't know yet. Her face softened and tightened at the same time. You shouldn't make plans for me. I didn't say I was. You didn't have to. The accusation was quiet. I stood. Hannah, I know the decision is yours. Do you? Yes, because everyone says that right before telling me what they believe I should do. I haven't told you to change anything. You're preparing an apartment. I'm repairing my property. Now you sound dishonest. She turned toward the stairs. I followed her into the hall. I'm not trying to trap you. She stopped. That isn't what scares me. What does? She faced me, one hand resting over the baby. That I might want it. The words struck deeper than anger would have. She descended the stairs and left the workshop. She did not return the next day. Or the day after that. On Friday morning, a woman entered my shop wearing a navy coat and carrying a leather handbag. She was older than Hannah by perhaps 8 years. They had the same brown eyes, though this woman's gaze held sharper edges. Are you Micah Reed? Yes, I'm Diane Bell, Hannah's sister. I wiped my hands on a cloth. I didn't know she had a sister nearby. I live in Fort Wayne. What can I do for you? You can stop confusing her. The directness almost impressed me. I'm not trying to confuse anyone. She told me about the apartment. It is empty. She told me about the job. She works for it. She told me you built a box for the letters. I said nothing. Diane placed her handbag on the counter. Hannah has spent months accepting what she needs to do. Then you appeared with repaired furniture and warm lunches and an empty apartment. That decision still belongs to her. Then stop placing a different life in front of her. The workshop felt colder. Do you think she doesn't deserve another option? I think a baby deserves stability. So do I. Then you should understand. Her voice remained controlled, but her hand tightened around the strap of her bag. Our mother raised us on promises, she said. Every month brought a new job, a new apartment, or a new man who was supposed to save us. The electricity was shut off so often that Hannah thought candles were normal. I started working at 15. I packed her lunches, I signed her school forms. I was a child raising another child because our mother believed love could cover every bill. Her anger had a reason. It had probably kept Hannah alive. I am not trying to punish my sister, Diane continued. I am trying to keep her from building a child's life on hope. Hannah is not your mother. I know that. Do you? Diane's eyes flashed. You have known her a few weeks. And you have known her forever. Yet she is living in Maple House. Pain crossed her face. It vanished quickly, but I saw it. My husband lost his job, she said. We have 3 children and 1 income. We offered her our basement, but she refused after 2 nights. She said our oldest son needed the room more than she did. That sounds like Hannah. She always makes sacrifice look like a decision. Diane reached for her bag. Do not promise her a family unless you understand what that word costs. I haven't promised anything. That may be worse. She left. Her words stayed behind. Do not promise her a family. I had avoided promises for years because I knew exactly what they cost. Yet somewhere between the rocking chair and the apartment window, I had begun imagining one. Hannah returned to work the following Monday. She acted as if nothing had happened. She opened the ledger. She answered 2 calls. She prepared invoices. I waited until noon. Your sister came here. Her pen stopped. I know. She cares about you. She cares loudly. She explained what happened when you were young. Hannah closed the ledger. She had no right. She was trying to protect you. Everyone protects me by deciding what I can survive. I didn't ask her to come. I know. I moved around the desk. Hannah, I am sorry about the apartment. She kept her gaze lowered. I shouldn't have started building an answer before asking what you wanted. Her hand rested on the closed ledger. I want my son. The words were barely audible. The room became still. She inhaled carefully. I have wanted him every day. I sat in the chair opposite her. Then why? Because wanting him does not create rent money. It does not create childcare. It does not make his father decent. She opened the desk drawer, removed a folded photograph, and placed it between us. The picture showed Hannah beside a dark-haired man at a summer fair. His arms circled her waist. Both were smiling. His name is Aaron, she said. He told me he was divorced. He told me he traveled for construction work. He lied. He was married. His wife called me after she found messages on his telephone. They have 2 children. I did not touch the photograph. When I told Aaron about the baby, he sent money once. Then he blocked my number. His wife filed for divorce. He blamed me for destroying his family. You did not create his lies. I still believe them. That is not the same thing. I lost my job when the company downsized. My grandmother died. The landlord sold her house. Every solid thing disappeared in 4 months. Her eyes filled, but her voice did not break. When I learned I was pregnant, I promised myself I would not become my mother. I would not carry a baby from room to room, telling him next week would be better. The apartment belongs to you. The job is yours. Until you meet someone. Until this becomes too much. Until you remember the baby isn't yours. I could have told her I loved her. I felt the truth of it pressing against my ribs. But Diane's warning stopped me. A promise made at the wrong moment could become another form of pressure. What name did you choose? I asked. Hannah stared at the photograph. Samuel. I understood then why she had never said the name aloud. A named child was harder to release. Samuel, I repeated. She closed her eyes. He kicks when you speak. I moved closer. The baby shifted beneath her sweater. Hannah gave a small, painful smile. He knows your voice. I knelt beside her chair and placed my hand where she guided it. Samuel kicked once. Then again. I wanted to say that I could love him. I wanted to say I already did. Instead, I whispered his name. Hannah covered my hand with hers. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then she pulled away. The meeting is next Thursday. What meeting? The final planning meeting before he is born. The adoptive couple will come. I'll sign the remaining papers. My chest tightened. Is that what you want? It is what I decided. That is not what I asked. Her face changed. You don't get to ask me that unless you have something real to offer. The words were not cruel. They were true. She gathered her coat and left. I stood beside the desk, staring at the photograph she had forgotten. That evening, I went upstairs. The repaired crib stood in the smaller bedroom. I had painted it soft white and carved one star beneath the top rail. The room smelled of fresh wood and clean plaster. I sat on the floor. For years, I had believed the worst thing my mother did was lose us. As an adult, I understood that poverty was more complicated than blame. She had been alone, frightened, and unprepared. She had needed help that did not arrive. Perhaps Emily had grown up in a yellow house with two good parents. I hoped she had. Adoption might have given her a beautiful life, but my mother had not chosen between two equal paths. She had surrendered because every other door was closed. Hannah believed the same thing. She was not choosing between motherhood and adoption. She was choosing between adoption and homelessness. That was not freedom. It was fear wearing the clothes of responsibility. The next morning, I went to see Mrs. Alvarez. She listened while I explained the apartment, the job, and everything Hannah had said. When I finished, she folded her arms. Do you love her? Yes, the answer came without hesitation. Do you love the baby? Yes. Are you trying to replace his father? No. Are you prepared for Hannah to accept your help and never marry you? The question hurt. Yes. Are you prepared to provide the apartment under a real lease, not a romantic promise you can withdraw? Yes. Are you prepared to keep employing her if your relationship changes? Yes, Mrs. Alvarez studied my face. Then stop speaking like a man in a story and start preparing like a man responsible for other people. She pulled a notebook from her desk. We made a list: housing, income, childcare, medical appointments, transportation, emergency savings, legal advice from someone qualified, support after the birth. Mrs. Alvarez called a retired nurse who volunteered at Maple House. Nora from the diner offered Hannah flexible evening work if she wanted it. A customer who operated a licensed childcare program said she had an opening beginning in 3 months. I prepared a proper lease for the apartment with low rent that would not begin until Hannah returned to work. I wrote an employment agreement guaranteeing her hours for 1 year. I placed enough money in the business account to cover her wages even during a slow season. None of it was romantic. That was why it mattered. I called Diane last. She answered on the 4th ring. I need your help, I said. With what? Giving Hannah a choice. I explained the plan. She remained silent after I finished. This could still fail, she said. Yes. You could change your mind. The lease and job agreement will remain valid. You could resent her. I could. She could resent me. People cannot sign contracts against every human weakness. Then what are you asking me to do? Stand beside her, not behind me. Not behind the adoptive parents. Beside Hannah. Diane exhaled. I spent half my childhood keeping her safe. I know. I cannot watch her baby live the way we did. Neither can I. What makes you think you can build something different? Nothing guarantees it. That is not comforting. No. But there is a furnished apartment, steady work, childcare, and a group of people who have agreed to help. That is more than a promise. Diane's voice softened. She will think she is a burden. Then we will have to keep telling her the truth until she believes it. What truth? That needing people is not the same as failing. Diane did not answer immediately. I'll be at the meeting, she said. Thursday arrived with steady rain. I delivered the restored cradle to Maple House that morning because staying busy was easier than watching the clock. At 2 in the afternoon, Mrs. Alvarez called. She signed the first pages. My hand tightened around the telephone. Is it final? That is a question for the counselor. But Hannah still has choices. She just does not believe she does. Where are they? Mrs. Alvarez gave me the address. I carried the cedar box of letters to my truck. Then I went upstairs and removed the blue wooden star from the top drawer of the kitchen cabinet, where I had placed it during renovations. It was not Hannah's star. It belonged to another child and another broken home. But it reminded me what silence could cost. The Family Services office stood beside the county library. I parked beneath a bare maple tree and carried the box through the rain. Diane waited in the lobby. "You came," I said. "So did you. Is Hannah inside?" Diane nodded toward a closed door. "She thinks I'm here to support the adoption." "Are you?" "I'm here to support my sister." That was enough. I could hear voices through the door. A counselor explaining a section of the paperwork. A man asking Hannah whether she needed more time. Hannah answering that she had already taken enough time. I knocked. The counselor opened the door. She was a calm woman in her 50s named Miss Patel. I had spoken to her briefly by telephone the day before. Hannah sat at the walnut table. Beside her were Mark and Elise Turner, the couple she had chosen. Mark wore a gray sweater. Elise held a folder against her chest. They both appeared nervous and kind. Hannah saw me. Her face went pale. "Micah, why are you here? I need to say something. You cannot do this now." Miss Patel stepped between us slightly. "Hannah, you decide who remains in the room." Hannah's eyes moved to the cedar box in my hands. "What is that?" "Your letters." Her voice sharpened. "You had no right to bring them." "I know." "Then leave." I almost did. Respecting her choice had become my shield. It allowed me to stay silent while pretending silence was noble. I set the box on a small table near the door. "I will leave after I say one thing." Hannah's hand rested near the final signature line. Elise Turner lowered her folder. Mark reached for his wife's hand. No one interrupted me. I stepped into the room. "Wait, there's another way." Hannah stared at me. I placed the apartment lease on the table. "This is not a marriage proposal," I said. "It is not a debt. It is not help that disappears if you do not love me." She said nothing. "The apartment above my shop is ready. This lease gives you the right to live there for a full year. The rent does not begin until 3 months after you return to work. You can renew it without my permission." I placed the employment agreement beside it. "This guarantees your hours at the shop. Mrs. Alvarez helped me prepare a childcare schedule. Nora offered you evening shifts if you ever want them. Mrs. Cho has a licensed childcare opening when Samuel is old enough." Hannah flinched when I said the name. Mark and Elise exchanged a glance. "You told them?" Hannah asked. "No, you told me. I never said it to anyone else." "I know." Her eyes filled. I continued before fear could stop me. "Your sister is here. She has agreed to help 1 weekend each month and 2 afternoons whenever her schedule allows." Diane entered the room. Hannah turned toward her. "You said I was making a mistake." "I said I was afraid," Diane answered. "You told me love wasn't enough." "It isn't." Hannah recoiled slightly. Diane moved closer. "But love was never the only thing you had. I was too frightened to see the rest. You have skill. You have work. You have people who know you. And now you have a plan." Hannah shook her head. "You have 3 children. And they have an aunt," Diane said. I should have remembered that family goes both directions. A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. She faced me again. "What happens when you realize this is not the life you wanted? This is the life I want." "You don't know that. I know I want you in it." The room remained silent. I felt every eye on me. But only Hannah mattered. "I love you," I said. "I love the way you correct my invoices. I love that you pretend half a grilled cheese sandwich is enough lunch. I love that you remember where your grandfather carved stars. And I already care about Samuel more than I know how to explain." Her hand covered her mouth. "But you do not owe me love in return. Take the apartment. Take the job. Raise your son. If all you ever want from me is a landlord who repairs the furnace and a boss who signs checks on time, I will keep those promises." Her voice shook. "Why would you do that?" "Because you should not lose your baby simply because no one helped you build a safe place to bring him." Elise Turner began to cry quietly. Hannah glanced toward her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Elise shook her head. "You have nothing to apologize for. But you came all this way." "We came because we hope to become parents," Mark said. "We did not come to take a child from a mother who wants to raise him." Elise reached across the table, though she stopped before touching Hannah. "We care about this baby," she said. "That means we have to care about whether you truly have a choice." Hannah's tears fell freely now. Ms. Patel moved the unsigned page away from her. "No decision has to be made today," she said. "We can pause. We can review your options carefully." Hannah placed both hands over her stomach. Samuel moved beneath them. "I signed the papers," she whispered. "Signing a page does not prevent you from asking questions, Ms. Patel replied. "We will discuss exactly what has and has not been completed. Nothing else happens until you understand and choose freely." Hannah turned toward me. "What if I fail? Then we adjust the plan. What if I lose the job? You are better at it than I am. What if Samuel gets sick? We call the doctor. What if I'm awake at 3 in the morning and I don't know what to do?" "You call Mrs. Alvarez, Mrs. Alvarez's voice came from the doorway. "And if I do not answer, you call again because I am old, not dead." Hannah gave a broken laugh through her tears. Mrs. Alvarez entered and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You were never supposed to do this alone," she said. Hannah bent forward. Diane knelt beside her. "I stayed where I was because I had offered a choice, not claimed a place." After several minutes, Hannah lifted her head. She looked at Mark and Elise. "I need time." Elise nodded. "Take it. I'm sorry. Please stop apologizing for loving your son," Elise said. Hannah turned to Miss Patel. "I want to pause everything." "We will." Then Hannah faced me. "You repaired the apartment for us. Yes, you finished the crib. Yes, you carved a star." I nodded. Her chin trembled. "Can I see it?" I held out my hand. She took it. We left the papers on the table. Samuel was born 12 days later. Hannah called me at 5 in the morning. "I think it's happening." I sat upright on the sofa in the workshop office. "Are you sure?" "No, Micah. I am calling because I enjoy testing you before sunrise. I'll get the truck. Mrs. Alvarez is driving me." "Then why did you call?" There was a pause. "I wanted you to know. I reached the hospital 20 minutes after they did." Diane arrived with a bag of clothes. Mrs. Alvarez brought enough food for an entire hallway. Nora came later carrying coffee and complaining that babies had no respect for business hours. I waited outside Hannah's room. I was not Samuel's father. I was not her husband. I was a man who loved them. And I understood that love did not entitle me to cross every doorway. Near noon, a nurse stepped into the hall. "She is asking for you." I entered carefully. Hannah lay against white pillows, exhausted and pale. Her hair was damp around her face. A small bundle rested in her arms. "Come here," she whispered. I moved beside the bed. Samuel's face was red and serious. One tiny hand had escaped the blanket. "He looks angry," I said. "He had a difficult morning. So did you. He has your frown." "That seems medically impossible." Hannah smiled weakly. "Hold him." My arms went stiff. I have never held a newborn. Neither had I until an hour ago. That is not reassuring. She showed me where to place my hands. When she lowered Samuel into my arms, the room seemed to narrow around his weight. He was lighter than a chair cushion. He was heavier than every promise I had avoided making. His fingers closed around one of mine. I could not speak. Hannah watched us. "He knows your voice," she murmured. I sat beside her bed and held him while afternoon light moved across the floor. 3 weeks later, Hannah and Samuel moved into the apartment above my shop. The rocking chair stood near the nursery window. The cedar box rested on a shelf beside it. Hannah continued writing letters, but they were no longer farewell letters. They became stories for Samuel to read when he was older. The day you kicked Micah during a thunderstorm. The day your aunt painted the kitchen and complained about the color. The day Mrs. Alvarez taught your mother how to swaddle you and then admitted she had forgotten half the steps. Hannah returned to bookkeeping slowly. Sometimes Samuel slept in a basket beside her desk. Sometimes he cried through customer calls. Once he spit milk across an invoice for a very expensive dining table. I framed that invoice. Hannah said I had poor judgment. I said it was our finest record. We did not begin dating immediately. That mattered to both of us. She needed to know the apartment and job were truly hers. I needed to prove my support was not a bargain disguised as kindness. Months passed. We shared dinners. We took Samuel for walks. I repaired the squeak in the rocking chair twice because Hannah used it every night. One evening, she found me beneath the crib tightening a screw. "You check that every week," she said. "It is an important piece." It was fine. I prefer certainty. She sat on the rug beside me. "Are you ever going to kiss me?" I struck my head against the underside of the crib. She laughed so hard she woke Samuel. After we settled him again, we stood near the nursery window. "Was that a serious question?" I asked. "Yes, I thought you wanted time." "I did. And now?" "Now I want you to stop acting as if caring for us is the only thing you are allowed to want." I touched her cheek. "Are you sure?" She leaned closer. "Micah, you built a lease before you admitted you loved me." I have never been more sure of anything. I kissed her beside the rocking chair her grandfather had built. It was gentle. Unhurried, nothing had to be rescued in that moment. Nothing had to be proven. 2 years later, Hannah and I married on the porch at Maple House. Mrs. Alvarez cried and denied it. Diane brought her children and gave a speech about fear, forgiveness, and the danger of trusting men with badly organized paperwork. Mark and Elise Turner attended too. They had adopted a baby girl the previous spring. Hannah had remained in contact with them, and what began in pain became an unexpected friendship. Samuel carried a small wooden star instead of the rings because he refused to release the box holding them. At the reception, he fell asleep in my arms. Hannah found me sitting in the old rocking chair near the porch window. "You're missing the cake," she said. "He outranks cake." She sat on the arm of the chair and rested her head against mine. "Do you ever think about Emily?" Yes, Hannah had helped me join a family tracing registry the year before. We had not found my sister yet, but I no longer kept the blue star hidden in a drawer. It hung above Samuel's bed. "I hope she had people who loved her," Hannah said. "So do I. And I hope she knows you never forgot." I glanced at Samuel sleeping against my chest. Maybe one day I'll tell her. Hannah took my hand. Below us, people laughed beneath strings of porch lights. Mrs. Alvarez argued with Nora about the proper way to cut wedding cake. Diane's children chased one another across the lawn. The old chair creaked softly beneath our weight. It had carried Hannah as a child. It had waded through years of silence. Now it held the three of us. A mother who had once believed she had no choice. A little boy who had nearly gone to a yellow house. And a man who finally understood that family was not a perfect promise. It was a place people kept building together. Above Samuel's crib, 2 wooden stars turned slowly in the warm air. At last, both of them had somewhere to belong.